The polished oak of the boardroom table reflected the harsh fluorescent lights, casting a sterile glow on the faces gathered, yet failing to mask the raw, simmering tension. Arthur Sterling, impeccably suited, gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white, a vein throbbing faintly on his temple. Across from him, the United Arab Emirates delegation sat as a monolithic block of offended dignity, their expressions unreadable, yet radiating an unmistakable chill that permeated the air-conditioned room. The faint hum of the building's infrastructure seemed to amplify the silence, each passing second stretching into an eternity of lost opportunity. A thick, almost suffocating aroma of expensive coffee and unspoken resentment hung heavy, mingling with the subtle, musky scent of their traditional attire. Outside, the relentless Houston sun beat down on the uptown district, its glare bouncing off the mirrored Sterling Holdings tower, indifferent to the multi-million-dollar deal teetering on the brink of collapse within. "This is an affront to our honor, Mr. Sterling," the delegation's leader, Ahmed Al-Farsi, stated in crisp, unaccented English, his voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying the weight of generations of cultural pride. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, pierced through Sterling's thinly veiled attempts at damage control. The contentious phrase, a seemingly innocuous business term in English, had been twisted by a clumsy translation, transforming it into a grave insult in Arabic, a direct challenge to their integrity. The previous team of translators had only compounded the error, their rushed apologies falling flat, each word echoing the vast chasm of misunderstanding. A low, almost imperceptible murmur rippled through the delegates, a collective sigh of offense that resonated more deeply than any shouting match. The air itself felt heavy, charged with the gravity of cultural disrespect, a palpable barrier between the two parties. Sterling's jaw tightened, his usual commanding presence now fractured by a desperate edge. He gestured dismissively at the empty chairs of the recently fired translation team. "We've exhausted every professional avenue, gentlemen. This is a simple linguistic misunderstanding, nothing more." His words, intended to soothe, only scraped against the delegation's already frayed patience, his tone betraying a fundamental lack of empathy. Al-Farsi simply raised a hand, a gesture of finality. The subtle rustle of silk thobes as the delegates began to shift, preparing to rise, sent a jolt of panic through Sterling. He could almost hear the hundreds of jobs evaporating, the company's reputation crumbling like dry earth under the Texan sun. The hum of the AC felt suddenly colder, mirroring the icy dread creeping into his chest, a stark contrast to the humid Houston air outside. Al-Farsi slowly pushed back his chair, the slight scrape against the polished floor, a jarring sound in the tense silence. His eyes, dark and resolute, met Sterling's for a final withering moment. "Our flights are confirmed for tomorrow morning. We have no further business here." The pronouncement hung in the air, a death knell for the multi-million-dollar contract. The other delegates followed suit, their movements synchronized, a silent, powerful statement of withdrawal. Briefcases, sleek and expensive, were snapped shut with an air of absolute finality. The aroma of brewing coffee had long since faded, replaced by the acrid scent of failure. The city of Houston, with its vibrant bayous and ambitious spirit, stood to lose not just a contract, but a significant blow to its global business standing, all because of words lost in translation and respect lost in interpretation. Chloe Miller, Sterling's executive assistant, watched from the periphery, a silent witness to the unfolding catastrophe. Her perfectly coiffed hair and tailored suit felt like a flimsy shield against the corporate devastation. She saw the defeat etched on Sterling's face, the unyielding resolve of the delegates, and the enormity of the crisis. Her mind raced, sifting through every conventional solution, every protocol, finding them all utterly useless in the face of such profound cultural alienation. The air in the opulent boardroom felt heavy, suffocating, a stark contrast to the distant, comforting sounds of children playing in the suburban neighborhood where she volunteered. A fleeting memory, a whisper of an extraordinary talent she'd once heard about through a local neurodiversity support program, sparked, like a fragile ember in her mind. As Alfarsi and his delegation began their stately procession towards the heavy oak doors, their backs a wall of dignified refusal, Sterling slumped back into his chair, a man utterly defeated, the arrogance drained from his posture. The metallic click of the door closing echoed through the suddenly cavernous room, sealing the fate of Sterling Holdings, or so it seemed. Chloe's heart pounded, a frantic drum against her ribs. The conventional path was closed, the deal was dead. But what if? A single, desperate thought formed, a name shimmering on the edge of her consciousness. Ignoring the protocol, ignoring Sterling's stunned silence, she pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she scrolled. A last, improbable hope against the backdrop of shattered expectations. The question hung unspoken. Could an unconventional solution, a seemingly impossible one, truly exist outside these gilded walls? Maya Bennett's world was a symphony of meticulously organized sounds and textures, a stark contrast to the sterile chaos unfolding miles away. In her quiet suburban Houston home, the morning light, though unseen, was felt as a subtle warmth against her skin, filtering through the blinds. She moved through the familiar space with an innate grace, her white cane, tipped with a vibrant red, tapping a rhythmic counterpoint against the polished hardwood floor, each soft click a confirmation of her path. The air carried the faint, comforting scent of brewing chamomile tea and the distant, playful shouts of children from down the street, a familiar backdrop to her carefully constructed routine. Her dark hair, usually pulled back in a practical braid, framed a face that, while appearing serene, held an intense, almost palpable concentration, her sightless eyes conveying a profound depth of internal processing. This small, insulated world was her sanctuary, a fortress built against the unpredictable sensory onslaught of the outside. Within this sanctuary, Maya's mind was an intricate labyrinth of logic and patterns, a prodigious capacity for absorbing and dissecting information that far surpassed her 14 years. Her hyperfocus, an unwavering beacon in her intellectual landscape, was language, particularly the ancient, resonant beauty of Semitic tongues. Classical Arabic, with its labyrinthine grammar and rich phonetic tapestry, captivated her completely. She had devoured countless audiobooks, meticulously recorded podcasts, and engaged in vibrant, often hours-long online discussions with native speakers, all through the meticulous filter of her extraordinary auditory memory. For Maya, language was not merely a tool for communication. It was a living, breathing organism, a complex system of cultural echoes and historical nuances, each word a window into the soul of a people, a concept largely lost on those who merely spoke. Yet this profound internal world was constantly navigated against a backdrop of acute sensory sensitivities. The sudden blare of a car horn on the street, the erratic flicker of a fluorescent light, or the abrasive feel of a rough wool sweater could send jarring ripples through her carefully maintained equilibrium, threatening to tip her into overwhelming sensory overload. To anchor herself, Maya had developed a series of subtle, almost imperceptible self-regulation strategies. She often swayed gently, a rhythmic, calming motion that centered her body and mind. Always, her fingers would instinctively seek out the smooth, cool surface of a small, polished wooden bird she carried, its familiar weight a constant, reassuring presence in her palm, a tactile comfort in a world often too loud or too chaotic. Her communication, though clear and remarkably precise, lacked the typical emotional inflections others expected, often leading to misinterpretations. Maya preferred directness, finding metaphors and sarcasm confusing and inefficient, a stark contrast to the subtle social cues most people relied upon. This directness, coupled with her blindness and autistic traits, often caused others to underestimate her, perceiving her as distant or less capable. They saw only the challenges, the perceived limitations, rather than the extraordinary depth of her perception and the unique, powerful lens through which she experienced reality. In a society that often prioritizes conformity and superficial social graces, Maya frequently found herself on the periphery, a brilliant mind often overlooked because it did not fit a conventional mold. Unbeknownst to Maya, the very linguistic chasm that defined her hyperfocus was, at this precise moment, unraveling a multi-million-dollar corporate deal across town. The delicate threads of international diplomacy and commerce, woven through the intricate tapestry of language, had snapped, leaving a gaping wound of cultural misunderstanding. Her mother, Sarah, a woman whose love and fierce advocacy had shielded Maya from a world often quick to judge, knew the depth of her daughter's unique gift. Sarah had spent years meticulously translating the world for Maya and Maya for the world, understanding that Maya's precision and deep cultural understanding of language could bridge chasms others couldn't even perceive. The very thought of Maya's gift being the solution was a fragile, desperate hope, born from the ashes of conventional failure. The sudden, insistent vibration of her mother's phone, usually a muffled background hum, cut through the quiet morning, an unexpected tremor in Maya's carefully structured routine. Sarah's voice, though calm, carried an unfamiliar urgency, a subtle shift in tone that Maya, with her acute auditory processing, immediately registered. The conversation was brief, hushed, yet its implications rippled through the peaceful home, hinting at an unknown disruption. Maya's fingers instinctively tightened around the smooth, familiar contours of her wooden bird, a tiny anchor against the brewing storm of the unknown. Her gentle sway intensified almost imperceptibly, a silent preparation, as if her entire being was bracing for a profound shift, unaware that her unique world was about to collide with the high-stakes drama of Sterling Holdings, and that the seemingly impossible solution lay within her. Chloe's trembling fingers finally connected the call. The sterile hum of the empty boardroom, a stark contrast to the frantic beat of her own heart. Sarah Bennett answered on the third ring, her voice, usually a steady anchor in the community, now tinged with a weariness Chloe recognized. "Sarah, it's Chloe Miller from Sterling Holdings. I need your help. It's about a translation, a huge deal, and it's gone terribly wrong." A pause, then Sarah's immediate concern for a deeper meaning, her mother's instinct already alert. Sarah, a woman forged in the quiet fire of single parenthood and relentless advocacy, had cultivated an almost psychic ability to discern true urgency from corporate panic. Her home, a haven of order and calm for Maya, suddenly felt vulnerable to the external chaos Chloe described, a chaos she knew could easily overwhelm her daughter's carefully constructed world. The weight of potential financial disaster hung heavy in Chloe's tone, but Sarah's focus was singular: the well-being of her child. A long, drawn-out breath from Sarah hummed through the phone line. Her gaze drifted towards the kitchen, where Maya was meticulously arranging her breakfast items by texture, a familiar, soothing ritual. The thought of exposing Maya to the harsh, unpredictable environment of a corporate boardroom, filled with unfamiliar sounds and the palpable stress of strangers, sent a shiver of protective fear down Sarah's spine. Yet Chloe's desperation was genuine, and the scale of the problem immense. Sarah had always taught Maya that her unique perspective was a strength, not a weakness, and this moment felt like a crucible for that belief. She thought of her brother, Uncle David, whose simple, unwavering faith in Maya's brilliance had always been a quiet source of comfort. If anyone could bridge this chasm, it was Maya, but at what cost to her delicate equilibrium? The choice, agonizing as it was, began to crystallize, driven by a fierce loyalty to her daughter's potential. Back in the opulent, yet now desolate, boardroom, Arthur Sterling paced like a caged tiger, the expensive leather of his shoes squeaking faintly on the polished floor. Chloe, summoning every ounce of courage, finally broke the silence. "Mr. Sterling, I know this is unconventional, but I might have found someone. A young woman, a prodigy with languages, particularly Arabic." Sterling stopped, his eyes narrowing, his posture radiating an immediate, almost instinctive contempt. "Unconventional? Chloe, we need a solution, not a miracle worker from a sideshow. Who is this person?" Another overpaid academic with no real-world sense? His voice, usually modulated, now carried a sharp, dismissive edge, a thinly veiled prejudice against anything that deviated from his rigid definition of competence, especially when under such intense pressure. Chloe swallowed hard, the metallic taste of fear in her mouth. She's blind, Mr. Sterling, and on the autism spectrum, but her understanding of Arabic, its nuances, its cultural depth, is unparalleled. I heard about her through a local neurodiversity program. They say she can hear what others miss. Sterling let out a short, incredulous laugh, a harsh, grating sound that echoed in the vast room. Blind? Autistic? Chloe, are you serious? I don't need a charity case. I need someone who can salvage a multi-million-dollar deal. This isn't a social experiment. It's a business crisis. This is precisely the kind of solution that makes me question your judgment. His words, laced with ableism, cut deep, revealing a worldview where vulnerability was synonymous with uselessness, a stark moral conflict against Chloe's nascent empathy. Despite his scathing dismissal, the desperation in Sterling's eyes flickered, a tiny ember of hope amidst the ashes of his arrogance. He ran a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair, a rare sign of his internal turmoil. Fine, he bit out, the word dripping with disdain. Bring her in. But if this is another waste of time, another one of your bleeding heart suggestions that yields nothing, you're not just out of a job, you're out of a career. And I mean nothing unconventional, Chloe. No special treatment, no disruptions. She gets one shot, and if she can't deliver, she's gone. Understood? His gaze was cold, a clear warning. He saw Maya not as a potential savior, but as a last, humiliating resort, a testament to his own failure, and a further validation of his prejudice, even as he was forced to consider her. The urgency in Chloe's voice had been unmistakable, a jarring note in Sarah's carefully orchestrated calm. Now, with the call ended, a quiet determination settled over her. She gently explained the situation to Maya, using concrete terms, focusing on the problem's linguistic puzzle rather than the corporate stakes. Maya, with her acute hearing, picked up on the subtle tremor in her mother's voice, the underlying stress. Her fingers instinctively sought the smooth, cool surface of her polished wooden bird, a silent anchor. As Sarah helped her gather her noise-canceling headphones and a familiar blanket for comfort, the air in their quiet home felt charged, a prelude to the unknown. They were stepping out of their sanctuary and into a world that had often underestimated them, but one that now, unknowingly, held its breath for Maya's unique vision. The hush that fell over Sterling Holdings wasn't one of peace, but of a holding breath, a collective gasp swallowed by the vast, glass-encased floors. Whispers replaced confident chatter, and the clatter of keyboards seemed to lose its usual rhythm, replaced by the anxious rustle of papers and hushed phone calls to concerned investors. Chloe watched as Arthur Sterling barked orders, his face a storm cloud, his frustration a palpable wave that swept through the executive suite, leaving a trail of terrified employees in its wake. The financial analysts huddled, their screens glowing with grim projections, each red arrow pointing towards an impending disaster that now felt terrifyingly real. Hundreds of jobs, the very livelihoods of families across Houston, hung in the balance, a stark, terrifying consequence of words misunderstood. The city, usually so vibrant and bustling, seemed to hold its breath with the company, its economic future momentarily dimmed by this international gaffe, the weight of it pressing down on everyone. Arthur Sterling's office, usually a sanctuary of power, now felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with his unbridled fury. He slammed his fist on his polished desk, the sound echoing sharply. "This is ludicrous, Chloe. A child? Blind? Autistic? Are you truly suggesting we pin our last hope, this multi-million-dollar deal, on a social experiment?" His voice, usually controlled, was laced with an acidic contempt, a clear dismissal of Maya's potential, fueled by his own fear and prejudice. He gestured wildly at the ticking clock on his wall, a constant, mocking reminder of the dwindling hours. "They leave tomorrow morning, Chloe." "Tomorrow. We need a professional, a proven expert, not some feel-good story for a local newspaper. This is not a game. This is my company, my legacy, and hundreds of lives we're talking about." Back in their quiet suburban haven, Sarah helped Maya select her most comfortable clothes, a soft cotton dress, devoid of irritating tags, and gently packed her noise-canceling headphones, the small polished wooden bird, in her favorite weighted blanket. Maya, though not fully grasping the intricacies of corporate finance, sensed the profound shift in her mother's demeanor. Sarah's hands, usually so steady, trembled almost imperceptibly as she braided Maya's dark hair, a subtle tremor that Maya's keen proprioception instantly registered. The rhythmic tap of her white cane felt different today, less a confident guide and more a hesitant probe into an unknown, unsettling future. A faint anxiety, a subtle hum beneath her carefully constructed calm, began to resonate within Maya, mirroring her mother's unspoken fears and the looming uncertainty. Maya meticulously arranged her sensory aids in her small backpack, each item a carefully chosen shield against the unpredictable world. The noise-canceling headphones, a soft barrier against jarring sounds, the weighted blanket, a comforting pressure against overstimulation, the smooth wooden bird, a constant tactile anchor. She ran her fingers over the cool, polished surface of the bird, its familiar contours a silent reassurance, a tiny island of predictability. Sarah watched, a knot forming in her stomach, knowing that even with these preparations, the corporate environment would be a relentless assault on Maya's finely tuned senses. The thought of the harsh fluorescent lights, the clatter of a busy office, the unfamiliar smells, all weighed heavily on her, a protective maternal instinct battling the desperate hope that Maya's gift could truly make a difference for them all. The journey from their quiet tree-lined street to the towering glass edifice of Sterling Holdings was a sensory gauntlet. The constant rumble of the Southwest Freeway, the blaring horns of impatient drivers, the cacophony of city life. Each sound was a distinct, sometimes painful entity in Maya's auditory landscape. She swayed gently in the back seat, her fingers tightening around the wooden bird, her headphones already muffling the worst of the urban assault, though the vibrations still resonated through the car seat. The metallic tang of exhaust fumes, the unfamiliar scent of fast food, and the sheer density of human activity pressed in, a stark contrast to the familiar scents of chamomile and cut grass that usually defined her mornings. Sarah, keenly aware of Maya's struggle, offered soft, reassuring words, her hand gently resting on Maya's arm, a silent conduit of calm amidst the chaos. As the car pulled up to the imposing, mirrored Sterling Holdings tower, its sheer scale seemed to swallow the morning light, reflecting the relentless Texan sun in a blinding glare. The lobby was a symphony of polished marble, hushed whispers, and the insistent ping of elevators, all amplified by Maya's acute hearing, creating a disorienting echo chamber. Chloe met them, her face a mask of strained politeness, her gaze darting nervously towards the executive suite, clearly aware of the storm brewing, when Maya, guided by Sarah's steady hand, stepped onto the executive floor. Arthur Sterling stood waiting, his arms crossed, his expression a chilling blend of exasperation and open disdain. His eyes, devoid of warmth, swept over Maya's delicate frame, her white cane, her headphones, and then landed on Sarah with a look that clearly communicated his utter lack of faith, a silent, damning judgment that promised an uphill battle. The air in the Sterling Holdings boardroom, already thick with unspoken tension, solidified into an almost unbearable pressure as Arthur Sterling, his face a mask of barely contained fury, gestured towards a new, impeccably dressed translator. Dr. Alistair Finch, a man introduced with a lengthy list of academic credentials and a self-assured smile, stepped forward, his leather briefcase clicking open with an air of professional authority. Maya, seated quietly beside her mother on a plush, oversized sofa in a corner, her noise-canceling headphones, a subtle barrier against the abrasive corporate hum, felt the shift in the room's energy. The faint aroma of Dr. Finch's expensive cologne, sharp and unfamiliar, pricked at her senses, a jarring note in the carefully modulated environment Sarah had tried to create. She gripped her wooden bird, its smooth surface, a comforting anchor against the growing unease, her posture still, almost ethereal, a stark contrast to the agitated figures around her. Dr. Finch, with an almost theatrical flourish, began to address the Emirati delegation in what he clearly considered flawless modern standard Arabic, his voice resonating with an academic precision that felt hollow and detached. He repeated Sterling's original, problematic statement, then offered a series of carefully chosen, literally correct synonyms, attempting to soften the blow with formal apologies and references to general business protocols. The delegates, however, remained unmoved, their expressions immutable, their gazes still distant and unyielding. A subtle, almost imperceptible tightening around Ahmed Al-Farsi's eyes, a slight stiffening of his shoulders, spoke volumes. The words, though grammatically impeccable, lacked the soul, the cultural resonance, that would bridge the chasm. Maya, though not directly listening to the words, registered the delegation's sustained stillness, the absence of any shift in their collective energy, a clear indicator of the continued failure. Sterling watched, his impatience a palpable force, his foot tapping a rapid, anxious rhythm against the polished floor. He leaned forward, his voice a low, urgent growl directed at Chloe. What is he doing? Why aren't they responding? He's supposed to be the best. His frustration mounted with each passing, silent second, further fraying the already thin threads of diplomacy. Dr. Finch, oblivious to the subtle cues of disdain from the delegation, continued his academic monologue, his words echoing in the cavernous room, each one amplifying the growing sense of futility. Chloe wrung her hands, her eyes darting between Sterling's furious face and the unyielding delegation, a cold dread seeping into her. She knew, with a sinking certainty, that this highly credentialed expert was failing just as spectacularly as the others, missing the very heart of the offense. After another 10 excruciating minutes, Al-Farsi raised a hand, a gesture that immediately silenced Dr. Finch mid-sentence. His voice, calm but firm, cut through the room like a cold blade. With all due respect, Dr. Finch, your understanding of our language, while academically sound, seems to lack the necessary depth of our culture. This is not merely a linguistic error, it is a matter of honor. The words, though delivered politely, were a damning indictment, a quiet, absolute rejection. The subtle scent of fresh coffee that Sterling had hoped would lighten the mood now felt cloying, almost bitter, a sensory reminder of the bitter taste of impending failure. Maya, sensing the abrupt halt in communication, the heavy silence that followed, tightened her grip on her wooden bird, her gentle sway intensifying slightly, her internal radar registering the escalating tension. Sterling, his face now a mask of utter defeat, slumped back in his chair, the last vestiges of his arrogance crumbling. He ran a hand through his hair, a desperate, almost pathetic gesture. "This is it, then," he muttered, his voice barely audible, the words laced with a raw, public humiliation. "They're leaving. Everything. Gone." The delegation began to gather their briefcases, their movements slow and deliberate, a silent, powerful affirmation of their intent to depart. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of despair. She glanced at Maya, who remained still, almost invisible, in the corner, her sightless eyes seeming to perceive far more than anyone in the room. A desperate, irrational thought sparked in Chloe's mind, a final, impossible gamble. As the delegation rose, their elegant thobes rustling softly, preparing to make their final exit, A sudden, sharp tremor ran through Maya. It wasn't the sound, which her headphones still muted, but the subtle shift in the room's air pressure, the faint vibration of the floor as multiple bodies moved with coordinated intent, signaling a definitive end. Her fingers instinctively released the wooden bird, letting it drop silently into her lap. She inhaled deeply, a silent, internal recalibration. Sarah, sensing the subtle change in her daughter, placed a reassuring hand on Maya's arm. Just as Al-Farsi reached for the door, Chloe, her voice trembling but resolute, blurted out, "Mr. Al-Farsi, please, one more moment. We have one last interpretation." All eyes, including Sterling's disbelieving ones, turned to the quiet corner where Maya sat, seemingly oblivious, yet poised on the precipice of an unimaginable challenge. Chloe's desperate plea hung in the air, a fragile thread snapping the delegation's momentum towards the door. Al-Farsi, his hand already on the cool metal of the handle, paused, his dark eyes slowly turning back, a flicker of irritation, then perhaps curiosity, crossing his impassive face. Arthur Sterling, still slumped in his chair, jerked upright, his gaze a bewildered, furious question directed at Chloe, then at the quiet corner where Maya sat. The room, which moments before had been filled with the rustle of departure, now held a heavy, expectant silence, a collective breath held. The hum of the air conditioning seemed to intensify, a subtle backdrop to the unfolding, improbable scene. Maya, with her headphones still in place, gently swaying, sensed the abrupt stillness, the shift in air pressure, and intuitively knew that the unknown had finally arrived, her fingers tightening around the polished wooden bird in her lap, a silent anchor. Sarah, her grip firm and reassuring, gently guided Maya forward, navigating the plush carpet and the scattered chairs towards the imposing oak table. Maya's white cane tapped softly, a rhythmic counterpoint to the hushed murmurs that rippled through the room. Sterling watched their approach with undisguised scorn, a harsh, dismissive sound escaping his lips. "This is absurd, Chloe. A child? What precisely do you expect her to do?" His words, though quiet, carried the weight of his contempt, a stark contrast to Sarah's gentle demeanor. The Emirati delegates, initially surprised, now observed Maya with a blend of polite curiosity and skeptical reserve, their expressions betraying no immediate judgment, but certainly no expectation of a miracle. The sheer improbability of the situation hung heavy, a palpable tension mingling with the faint, lingering aroma of expensive coffee. As Sarah helped Maya settle into a chair at the end of the long table, near a small, auxiliary monitor Chloe had quickly set up, Maya's acute senses began to map her new environment. The polished wood of the table felt cool beneath her fingertips. The air, though filtered, carried the subtle sense of various colognes and the metallic tang of electronics, a stark departure from her home's comforting aromas. She registered the faint, irregular rhythm of Sterling's anxious breathing, the almost imperceptible rustle of the delegates, Thobes as they resettled, their movements cautious. Her noise-canceling headphones, a soft barrier, muted the worst of the room's ambient hum, but the subtle vibrations, the very texture of the silence, still reached her, requiring a focused effort to maintain her internal equilibrium amidst the overwhelming sensory input. Chloe, her voice barely above a whisper, addressed Sterling, trying to infuse her words with a conviction she herself was still struggling to fully embrace. "Mr. Sterling, Maya doesn't just translate words. She understands the talk culture behind them. She hears the nuances, the unspoken meanings, the emotional weight that gets lost in conventional translation." Sterling scoffed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "Nuances? We need a deal, Chloe, not a poetry reading. And how exactly is a blind girl going to hear anything more than a dozen professional linguists? This is a desperate stunt, nothing more. A waste of our rapidly diminishing time." His gaze, burning with impatience, flicked between Chloe and Maya, his prejudice a thick, almost visible barrier. Sarah, ignoring Sterling's derision, calmly placed Maya's weighted blanket over her lap and handed her the small, polished wooden bird. Maya's fingers immediately found its familiar contours, rubbing the smooth surface in a soothing, repetitive motion. Chloe, with a surge of quiet defiance, then explained to the still skeptical delegates that Maya would need to listen to the original recordings of the problematic exchanges, not just read transcripts. She emphasized that Maya's unique auditory processing allowed her to discern patterns and inflections that others might miss, a profound depth of listening. The request for the recordings, rather than a direct dialogue, added another layer of unconventionality, further solidifying the perception that this was a last, improbable gamble, teetering on the edge of the truly impossible. A tense silence descended as Chloe, with trembling hands, queued up the audio file on the small monitor. The recording began, the faint, distorted echoes of Sterling's voice, then the previous translator's clumsy Arabic, filled the room, though only faintly audible to those without headphones. Maya, her sightless eyes closed in intense concentration, her gentle sway a steady rhythm, leaned slightly forward, her entire being focused on the intricate tapestry of sounds. She wasn't merely listening. She was dissecting, analyzing, searching for the subtle dissonances, the cultural missteps, the precise point where respect had shattered into offense. The delegates watched, their faces a mix of doubt and faint intrigue, a fragile, almost absurd hope flickering in the otherwise sterile, corporate air, waiting for the impossible to unfold. Chloe, moving with a newfound resolve, quickly dimmed the harsh overhead fluorescent lights, replacing the sterile glare with a softer, more diffused glow that made the mahogany table appear less imposing. She then signaled to a nervous security guard, instructing him in hushed tones to ensure absolute quiet near the boardroom, an unprecedented demand in the always bustling executive wing. Sarah, ever prepared, retrieved a compact, high-fidelity portable speaker system from her bag, connecting it swiftly to the auxiliary monitor, ensuring the audio clarity Maya required was impeccable. Arthur Sterling, observing these seemingly trivial adjustments, scoffed audibly, muttering under his breath about pampering and wasting precious time, his face a mask of barely concealed disdain. Yet the Emirati delegation, though still maintaining their stoic composure, watched the meticulous preparations with a flicker of polite curiosity, perhaps sensing a sincerity in the effort, however unconventional it seemed. The atmosphere, once thick with corporate tension, now held a fragile, almost reverent quiet, a stark contrast to the earlier chaos. Maya, her noise-canceling headphones now a perfect, soft seal against her ears, registered the subtle, yet profound, shift in the room's ambient energy. The reduction in the oppressive texture of the light, though unseen, eased a subconscious pressure. She adjusted her posture, allowing her gentle, rhythmic sway to become a steady, almost imperceptible motion, her fingers tracing the familiar, smooth contours of her polished wooden bird, its cool surface a grounding anchor. The familiar weight of the blanket on her lap provided a deep, comforting pressure, a tactile shield against any lingering sensory echoes from the jarring journey and the earlier tension. Her extraordinary mind, now largely unburdened by the relentless assault of external stimuli, began to focus inward, preparing to receive the intricate linguistic data with unparalleled precision, ready to peel back the layers of sound, intent, and cultural meaning woven within the recordings. Sterling, however, remained a fortress of skepticism, his impatience a visible tremor in his tightly clenched jaw. He cleared his throat loudly, a deliberate, sharp disruption that cut through the fragile quiet. "Are we truly expected to sit here all day while she meditates, Chloe? The delegation's flight is booked for tomorrow morning. We're running out of time, not staging a performance for an art gallery. She needs to do something, produce results, not just sit there swaying like a willow in the wind." His voice, though a strained whisper, carried a sharp, dismissive edge, his deep-seated ableist prejudice showing through his thinly veiled frustration, completely failing to grasp that Maya's apparent stillness was, in fact, her most intense and focused form of activity, a testament to his narrow, conventional understanding of competence and productivity. Sarah, sensing Sterling's escalating frustration, stepped forward with unwavering resolve, her gaze meeting his with quiet intensity. "Mr. Sterling, Maya's cognitive process is unique. She requires specific, undisturbed conditions to access her full capabilities. What you perceive as stillness is her deep, analytical immersion, where she processes information at a level far beyond what most can comprehend. Any interruption, any sudden or jarring noise, can entirely derail her concentration and her delicate equilibrium. We are not demanding special treatment. We are ensuring the necessary environment for her to solve a problem that, by all conventional accounts, no one else has managed to resolve." Her voice, though calm and measured, held the quiet, unyielding strength of a mother's fierce protection, coupled with a pragmatic understanding of her daughter's profound needs. As the audio recordings of the failed negotiations played again, Maya's mind transformed into a finely tuned instrument, dissecting each syllable, each subtle inflection of the Arabic words. She wasn't merely hearing the literal content, she was acutely perceiving the almost imperceptible shift in the previous translator's tone, the subtle hesitation, the critical absence of a particular cultural nuance that would have softened the phrase and conveyed respect. Her hyperfocus allowed her to construct a complex, three-dimensional linguistic map, where words were not just sounds but carried immense historical weight, deep emotional resonance, and intricate cultural implications. She was meticulously sifting through the layers of spoken language, searching for the precise cultural fault line, the exact point where respect had fractured into profound offense, a task utterly impossible for a mind not intrinsically attuned to such intricate patterns and their underlying significance. Suddenly, a faint, high-pitched whine emanated from the auxiliary monitor, a brief, jarring electronic feedback loop caused by a loose connection. Maya flinched almost imperceptibly, her gentle sway momentarily halting, her fingers clenching the polished wooden bird with sudden force. Her face tightened with a brief, visible flash of sensory discomfort, a fleeting moment of vulnerability. Sarah, ever vigilant, immediately reached out and gently pressed a button on the speaker, silencing the errant sound before it could fully escalate. Maya took a deep, steadying breath, her well-practiced self-regulation strategies kicking in instantly. She reopened her sightless eyes, then closed them again, already recalibrating, demonstrating her remarkable resilience and the delicate balance required for her unique work, a fleeting challenge swiftly overcome, promising that despite such obstacles, her profound, singular insight would ultimately prevail. Maya's world, once a symphony of structured routine, now narrowed to the intricate dance of sounds emanating from the portable speaker. Her noise-canceling headphones, a silent cocoon, amplified the nuances of the recorded Arabic conversations, transforming them from mere words into a vibrant, multi-layered tapestry of cultural meaning. She wasn't simply translating the literal, she was dissecting the very texture of the speech, the subtle shifts in intonation, the almost imperceptible hesitations, the emotional weight imbued in each syllable. Her autistic hyperfocus, a powerful laser beam of concentration, allowed her to construct a complex, three-dimensional linguistic map where every phrase was a confluence of historical context, social hierarchy, and deeply ingrained cultural values. The faint, sweet scent of Sarah's chamomile tea, a grounding aroma, mingled with the sterile corporate air, a subtle anchor in her intense internal journey as she meticulously sifted through the layers, searching for the precise point of dissonance, the cultural fault line that had caused such profound offense. Arthur Sterling, unable to comprehend the quiet intensity of Maya's process, paced at the far end of the boardroom, his expensive shoes squeaking rhythmically, a grating sound that, even through Maya's headphones, registered as a faint, unsettling vibration. His patience, already stretched thin, snapped. He slammed his hand lightly on the oak table, the sharp thud echoing. "Chloe, this is preposterous. We are not conducting a séance. This child has been sitting there, swaying, for nearly 20 minutes, and we have absolutely no indication of progress. Their flight departs in a matter of hours. Are we to simply watch her engage in some sort of elaborate performance while my company crumbles? His voice, a harsh whisper, was laced with an acidic contempt, a clear dismissal of Maya's unique method, his ableist prejudice rearing its ugly head, ready to derail the fragile process. Sarah, her expression calm but resolute, stepped between Sterling and Maya, shielding her daughter with a protective stance. "Mr. Sterling, as I explained, Maya's mind operates differently. What you see as stillness is profound processing. She is not performing. She is, Goguresh, working. Any further interruptions will only set us back further." Maya, though undisturbed by Sterling's words, registered the subtle tension in her mother's posture. Her fingers instinctively tightened around the cool, smooth wooden bird, a familiar touchstone. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible click resonated in her mind. It wasn't a single word, but the subtle, almost imperceptible tonal shift in a specific, seemingly innocuous phrase. A cultural proverb used by the original translator that had been stripped of its deeper, respectful context, rendering it a direct challenge to the delegation's honor. The problem was not a simple lexical substitution, Maya realized with startling clarity. It was a profound misapprehension of a specific cultural idiom, deeply rooted in historical respect and honor within Emirati society. The original phrase, intended as a deferential acknowledgement of shared ambition, had been rendered as a blunt, almost aggressive challenge to their very integrity, stripping away generations of nuanced social interaction. Her mind raced, connecting the dots between the spoken word, ancient texts she had absorbed, and the subtle, almost imperceptible inflections that had been entirely missed by conventional linguists. She understood that a direct translation was insufficient. What was required was a cultural bridge, an explanation that honored the depth of their tradition, while acknowledging the unintentional nature of the insult. This was the heart of the misunderstanding, a chasm far wider than mere semantics. A subtle shift occurred in the room's atmosphere. The delegates, initially observing Maya with polite, detached skepticism, now leaned forward almost imperceptibly, their collective stillness deepening, perhaps sensing the intensity emanating from the quiet girl. Sterling, catching this subtle change, narrowed his eyes, a flicker of something akin to reluctant intrigue warring with his ingrained disdain. "All right," he conceded, his voice grudging. "But we are running out of time, Chloe. If she has found something, anything, she needs to articulate it now. No, we don't have the luxury of extended contemplation. This isn't a university lecture. It's a multi-million-dollar business deal teetering on the precipice. I need actionable intelligence, not philosophical musings." "What is it then? Speak, girl." His impatience, though slightly tempered, remained a formidable, suffocating presence, a new obstacle to be navigated. Chloe, her heart thrumming with a mixture of terror and exhilarating hope, saw the subtle signs in Maya. The slight relaxation of her shoulders, the gentle, almost imperceptible nod of her head, the way her fingers now rested calmly on the wooden bird, rather than gripping it tightly. A profound understanding had settled over Maya's features, a quiet certainty that radiated even through her closed eyes. Chloe knew, with an unshakable conviction, that Maya had not only found the answer, but understood its full weight. She took a deep breath, her gaze meeting Sarah's, a silent communication of shared belief. Maya slowly removed her noise-canceling headphones, the sudden influx of ambient sound momentarily jarring, but she remained composed. She turned her sightless eyes towards the delegation, her voice, though soft, carrying an unexpected gravity, poised to finally bridge the impossible chasm. Maya slowly removed her noise-canceling headphones, the sudden influx of the boardroom's ambient hum, the faint clatter of distant office activity, and the subtle scent of expensive coffee momentarily jarring her finely tuned senses. She took a deep, steadying breath, her fingers gently caressing the smooth, familiar contours of her polished wooden bird, a silent ritual of grounding. Then, turning her sightless eyes towards the delegation, her posture radiating an unexpected serenity amidst the palpable tension, she began to speak. Her voice, soft yet remarkably clear, resonated with an ancient cadence as she addressed Ahmed Al-Farsi directly, her classical Arabic impeccable, flowing with a natural grace that stunned everyone into an immediate, profound silence. Sterling, still slumped in his chair, watched with a mixture of disbelief and growing bewilderment, his jaw slightly agape, utterly unprepared for the quiet authority emanating from the young girl he had so arrogantly dismissed. The delegates, initially surprised, leaned forward almost imperceptibly, their collective gaze now fixed on Maya, a fragile, unspoken hope beginning to replace their hardened skepticism. The phrase, "Our ambition is as vast as your desert, and our will as unyielding as your mountains," while seemingly a compliment in its literal translation, carries a profound and unintended implication in the Hijazi dialect, particularly when addressed to a delegation of your esteemed stature. Maya articulated, her voice unwavering, each word perfectly pronounced. She explained that the previous translation, lacking the critical nuance of respectful deference, had inadvertently rendered it as a challenge, an audacious claim of superiority, rather than a shared aspiration. To liken one's ambition to your desert and your mountains, without the accompanying humility of, with your blessing, or, inspired by your grandeur, becomes an assertion of dominance, a direct affront to the host's generosity and wisdom, a subtle yet devastating clash with the very essence of your hospitality and honor. The delegates exchanged quick, almost imperceptible glances, a silent confirmation of her astonishing accuracy. Maya continued, her voice weaving a tapestry of cultural insight. In the context of ancient poetic tradition, particularly within the works of Antara ibn Shaddad, to speak of another's land with such possessive pride, without acknowledging the host's dominion, is akin to claiming their heritage as one's own. It implies a conquest of spirit, even if not of territory. She then recited a brief, resonant couplet from a pre-Islamic poem, its verses speaking of the sanctity of a guest's honor and the host's boundless generosity. The original intent, I believe, was to express shared, boundless ambition. However, without the proper cultural framing, it became a declaration of competitive will, rather than cooperative spirit, thus striking at the heart of your delegation's dignity and the profound respect embedded in your traditions of commerce and negotiation. Al-Farsi's rigid posture softened, a flicker of recognition, then astonishment, crossing his stern features. Therefore, Maya continued, her tone shifting to one of profound apology, yet imbued with an unshakable confidence. On behalf of Sterling Holdings, I extend a sincere apology for this unintentional oversight. It was not a gesture of disrespect, but a profound error born of cultural ignorance, a failure to fully grasp the rich tapestry of your linguistic and historical heritage. She then offered a revised phrasing, meticulously crafted to convey the original intent while honoring Emirati cultural sensitivities. Our aspirations, nurtured by the spirit of cooperation, seek to emulate the boundless horizons of your desert and draw strength from the unwavering resilience symbolized by your mountains, always with profound respect for your esteemed leadership and guidance. The words hung in the air, a balm to the wounded pride, a bridge gracefully extended across the chasm of misunderstanding. She then proposed a tangible solution, her voice now filled with a quiet, persuasive power. To rectify this, and to demonstrate our genuine commitment to a partnership founded on mutual respect, we propose an addendum to the contract. This addendum would formally acknowledge the profound value of honor, trust, and the sanctity of one's word within our shared commercial endeavors, perhaps even incorporating a specific proverb that encapsulates this mutual understanding, such as, "The word of a man is his bond." This would not only correct the linguistic error but weave the very fabric of your cultural values into the foundation of our future collaboration, transforming a misunderstanding into a testament of our enduring partnership. Sterling, eyes wide with disbelief, slowly pushed himself upright, his arrogance utterly shattered, replaced by a dawning, humbling realization. A long, profound silence descended upon the boardroom, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. Then, a slow, almost imperceptible smile spread across Ahmed Al-Farsi's face, replacing the earlier mask of offended dignity. He looked at his fellow delegates, who now wore expressions of astonishment and deep respect, their previous anger having completely dissipated. With a deliberate, measured movement, Al-Farsi rose from his chair, his gaze fixed on Maya. He then performed a slight, respectful bow towards her, a gesture of profound acknowledgement that resonated with generations of cultural reverence. The heavy oak doors, which had moments ago represented an insurmountable barrier to a failed deal, now seemed to hold the promise of a renewed future, the crisis not just averted, but transformed into an unexpected, powerful alliance. Ahmed Al-Farsi, his initial, almost imperceptible smile now broadening into a genuine, radiant expression, took a deep, resonant breath that seemed to fill the entire boardroom with a newfound sense of peace. He looked at Maya, his gaze no longer distant but filled with profound understanding and respect, a silent acknowledgement of her extraordinary insight. The subtle scent of expensive coffee, which had earlier felt bitter, now seemed to carry a hint of sweetness, a testament to the palpable shift in the room's atmosphere. He then turned to his delegation, his eyes conveying a message of shared vindication and immense relief, a silent signal that the chasm had not only been bridged, but had been transformed into a foundation for deeper connection. The tension, which had been a suffocating weight just moments before, began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile, yet undeniable sense of hope. The other delegates, initially stunned into silence, now stirred, their expressions transitioning from rigid skepticism to open astonishment. A ripple of quiet murmurs spread among them, not of offense, but of agreement and profound admiration. They exchanged glances, nods of approval and faint, appreciative smiles, their bodies visibly relaxing as the weight of misunderstanding lifted. One of the elder delegates, his face etched with wisdom, even offered a subtle, respectful bow from his seated position towards Maya, his eyes shining with a rare, unspoken gratitude. The intricate patterns of the polished oak table, which had reflected only the sterile light of impending failure, now seemed to mirror the dawning light of a renewed opportunity, a multi-million-dollar deal pulled back from the brink by an unexpected voice. Arthur Sterling, utterly shattered by the revelation, slowly pushed himself upright in his chair, his mind struggling to reconcile the girl he had so arrogantly dismissed with the extraordinary individual who had just saved his company. His face, usually a mask of unshakable confidence, now cycled through a rapid succession of emotions: disbelief, then a flash of acute embarrassment, followed by a dawning, humbling realization. The arrogance that had defined his posture for years seemed to deflate, leaving him feeling small and exposed. He cleared his throat, a dry, almost inaudible sound, his gaze fixed on Maya, seeing her not as a charity case or a social experiment, but as the undeniable architect of his salvation, a bitter pill to swallow yet undeniably true. Al-Farsi, after his respectful bow to Maya, extended a hand toward Sterling, his previous anger replaced by a calm, professional demeanor tinged with a newfound warmth. "Mr. Sterling," he stated, his voice now rich with cordiality, "your willingness to listen to such profound wisdom, even in the 11th hour, speaks volumes. We accept your apology, and we are prepared to resume negotiations immediately, with the understanding that this new addendum, crafted with such sensitivity, will form the cornerstone of our future partnership." The words, spoken with genuine sincerity, washed over Sterling, a wave of immense relief crashing over him, momentarily eclipsing his shame, the hum of the AC now a comforting background, instead of an icy dread. The contract, which had been moments from being irrevocably lost, was now salvaged, and not just salvaged, but strengthened by a deeper, more profound understanding. The room, once charged with hostility, now buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose and collaborative energy. It was unequivocally clear to everyone present, even to Sterling in his humbled state, that this monumental turnaround, this delicate mending of fractured trust, had been achieved solely through Maya's unique ability. Her profound, empathetic interpretation of language, her capacity to hear the unspoken cultural heart of the words, was the only key that could have unlocked this impossible impasse, a testament to her singular gift. As the delegates began to discuss the revised contract wording, their voices now low and amiable, Sterling watched Maya, who had quietly replaced her headphones, her gentle sway returning, her fingers once again tracing the familiar contours of her wooden bird. A quiet yet revolutionary shift had occurred not just in the boardroom, but within Sterling himself. The multi-million-dollar deal, saved by the very individual he had dismissed, was not just a financial victory, it was a profound, personal awakening. The relentless Houston sun, still beating down outside the Sterling Holdings tower, seemed to shine with a new, brighter light, illuminating a path towards a future where prejudice could yield to potential, and overlooked talents could redefine what true capability truly meant. Ahmed Alfarzi's smile, now fully blossomed, was a sun-drenched landscape replacing the barren desert of his previous anger. He slowly turned, his gaze sweeping over his delegation, a silent communication of profound understanding and vindication. The intricate patterns of the boardroom's polished oak, previously reflecting only the sterile glare of impending failure, now seemed to shimmer with the dawning light of a renewed opportunity. With a deep, resonant breath, he addressed Maya, his voice rich with a warmth that had been absent for days. "Young Maya," he began, his words carrying the weight of generations of respect, "your insight has not merely translated words, it has deciphered the very soul of our heritage. You have shown us a depth of understanding that transcends mere language. For this, we are profoundly grateful." The air, no longer heavy with tension, now hummed with a fragile, undeniable hope, a promise of mended bridges. A ripple of quiet murmurs, not of offense but of agreement and profound admiration, spread among the other delegates. Their rigid skepticism melted away, replaced by open astonishment and genuine respect. They exchanged quick, appreciative glances, their bodies visibly relaxing as the suffocating weight of misunderstanding lifted. One of the elder delegates, his face etched with the wisdom of years, even offered a subtle, respectful bow from his seated position towards Maya, his eyes shining with a rare, unspoken gratitude that spoke volumes. The subtle rustle of their thobes, once a signal of impending departure, now felt like a gentle sigh of relief. The intricate patterns of the polished oak table, which had reflected only the sterile light of impending failure, now seemed to mirror the dawning light of a renewed opportunity, a multi-million-dollar deal pulled back from the brink by an unexpected voice. Arthur Sterling, witnessing this extraordinary transformation, felt the floor beneath him give way. His carefully constructed world of corporate certainty and rigid prejudice crumbled in an instant. His face, usually a mask of unshakable confidence, now cycled through a rapid succession of raw emotions: disbelief, a searing flash of acute embarrassment, followed by a dawning, humbling realization. The arrogance that had defined his posture for years seemed to deflate, leaving him feeling small, exposed, and utterly foolish. He cleared his throat, a dry, almost inaudible sound, his gaze fixed on Maya, seeing her not as a charity case or a social experiment, but as the undeniable, quiet architect of his salvation. The bitter taste of his own words, his dismissive contempt, now filled his mouth, a humiliating testament to his profound error in judgment. Alfarsi, after his respectful acknowledgment of Maya, turned his attention to Sterling, extending a hand across the polished table. His voice, now rich with cordiality, was a stark contrast to his earlier, icy pronouncements. "Mr. Sterling," he stated, a subtle challenge in his tone, "your willingness to listen to such profound wisdom, even in the 11th hour, speaks volumes. We accept your apology, and we are prepared to resume negotiations immediately, with the understanding that this new addendum, crafted with such sensitivity, will form the cornerstone of our future partnership. Sterling, still reeling, grasped Alfarsi's hand, the gesture a physical embodiment of his shattered pride and forced humility. The multi-million-dollar contract, which had been moments from being irrevocably lost, was now salvaged, not just financially but ethically, forcing Sterling to confront his own deeply ingrained biases. Chloe Miller, tears welling in her eyes, watched the scene unfold, a profound sense of vindication and relief washing over her. She glanced at Sarah Bennett, whose face, usually etched with quiet determination, now radiated immense pride. Sarah met Chloe's gaze, a silent communication of shared belief, a testament to their unwavering faith in Maya. Maya, meanwhile, had quietly replaced her noise-canceling headphones, her gentle sway returning, her fingers once again tracing the familiar contours of her wooden bird. A silent, internal recalibration amidst the external adulation. The sudden influx of praise and attention was a new sensory experience, yet she remained composed, her deep satisfaction evident in the subtle relaxation of her shoulders, her unique mind already cataloging this unprecedented moment of true, profound understanding. As the delegates began to discuss the revised contract wording, their voices now low and amiable, a new hum filled the boardroom, not of tension, but of renewed purpose and collaborative energy. It was unequivocally clear to everyone present, even to Sterling in his humbled state, that this monumental turnaround, this delicate mending of fractured trust, had been achieved solely through Maya's unique ability. Her profound empathetic interpretation of language, her capacity to hear the unspoken cultural heart of the words, was the only key that could have unlocked this impossible impasse. A testament to her singular gift. The relentless Houston sun, still beating down outside the Sterling Holdings tower, seemed to shine with a new, brighter light, illuminating a path towards a future where prejudice could yield to potential, and overlooked talents could redefine what true capability truly meant, a beacon of transformation. The aftermath of the salvage deal rippled through Maya's life, not as a sudden, jarring wave, but as a gentle, persistent current, subtly reshaping her world. Arthur Sterling, profoundly humbled, honored his promise, establishing a robust educational fund in Maya's name, ensuring her access to any linguistic program she desired, anywhere in the world. He also extended a standing invitation for her to serve as an honorary cultural consultant for Sterling Holdings, future international ventures, a testament to her unparalleled insight. Sarah Bennett, watching her daughter receive such profound and unexpected recognition, felt a quiet, deep satisfaction bloom in her chest, a vindication of years spent advocating for Maya's unique abilities. The subtle scent of success, mingled with the lingering aroma of the boardroom's expensive coffee, now felt less like a distant dream and more like a tangible, well-deserved reality, a new path unfolding. The story of the, quote, blind prodigy who saved Sterling Holdings quickly captivated Houston, spreading through local news outlets and social media, transforming Maya into an unexpected symbol of capability. Sterling Holdings, under Arthur Sterling's newly enlightened leadership, underwent a significant internal transformation. The corporation, once a bastion of rigid conventional thinking, implemented groundbreaking neurodiversity and inclusion policies, sponsoring new support and educational programs for individuals on the autism spectrum and other disabilities throughout the city. The sterile, fluorescent-lit hallways of the tower, once reflecting only corporate ambition, now buzzed with a different kind of energy, one of genuine curiosity and a newfound commitment to embracing diverse talents, a stark contrast to Sterling's previous ableist dismissals. Maya's triumph sparked a profound re-evaluation within Houston's educational landscape. Her own school, along with other institutions, began to critically examine their teaching methodologies, seeking to adapt environments and curriculums to better unleash the latent potential of neurodivergent students. Workshops on sensory-friendly classrooms, alternative communication strategies, and the cultivation of hyperfocus areas became commonplace, fostering a new era of empathetic learning. Maya, though preferring her quiet routines, inadvertently became a beacon of hope, her story inspiring countless families to view neurodiversity not as a limitation, but as a unique, powerful gift, waiting to be understood and nurtured, a shift in perception that resonated deeply within the community. The deeper message of Maya's journey resonated far beyond the corporate boardrooms and school halls. It was a poignant reminder that true potential does not adhere to a single form or mold, and that neurodiversity is an inexhaustible wellspring of unique talents, often overlooked precisely because they defy conventional expectations. The narrative powerfully underscored the inherent danger of prejudice, demonstrating how rigid biases can blind individuals to the very solutions they desperately seek. It championed the vital importance of adaptation and radical inclusion as not merely ethical imperatives, but as pragmatic pathways to unlocking unforeseen capabilities, transforming perceived weaknesses into extraordinary strengths, and illuminating the richness that diverse perspectives bring to every facet of society. This profound narrative, woven into the vibrant tapestry of Houston, echoed deeply with core American values. It celebrated the fundamental respect for individual worth, regardless of visible differences, and highlighted the indispensable role of community support in nurturing those who navigate the world uniquely. The unwavering strength of family, personified by Sarah's fierce advocacy and Uncle David's steadfast love, emerged as the primary source of resilience and emotional fortitude. Moreover, Maya's story became a powerful testament to ingenuity and the indomitable human spirit, inviting everyone to look beyond superficial appearances and discover the rich, invaluable contributions each person, in their distinct brilliance, has to offer. Maya Bennett, still gently swaying in her quiet home, her fingers tracing the familiar contours of her polished wooden bird, had done more than save a multi-million-dollar business deal. She had, with her quiet brilliance and profound empathy, opened the eyes of an entire community, including the once arrogant Arthur Sterling, to the true, expansive definition of capability. Her journey served as an enduring beacon, a testament to the transformative power of understanding, inclusion, and the recognition that the most extraordinary insights often emerge from the most unexpected places. The world, once a place that frequently misunderstood her, had finally begun to listen, offering not just acceptance, but profound reverence for the unique symphony of her mind, a hopeful promise for all who dare to be different.